Shem, and the name to be of this lineage of Shemitic. When you look at ancient Ethiopians, Negus, and the ancient pre-Diluvian, prehistoric peoples, the ancient shamans and the rituals, the making of calendars, the aligning of time with earth, space, and matter. When we look at Shu and the Nile and the eastern wind and this dry wind, especially at this time of the summer, and how these northern tropics of Cancer function during this time of Shu. America is the ancient land, prehistoric land of shamans, priests. So we see this ancient Hebrew, Shemitic Hebrew, here in the Americas, prehistoric. We look at the pre-Diluvian burial mounds here and the land of the dead and the funerary procession and the need to bury one's dead. And we look at that culture of preparing for the afterlife. Shemitic shamans here in the Americas form these earthen altars, altars of earth, as mentioned in Exodus, the 20th chapter, and the 24th and 25th verse. When you hear this hearing from the heaven and the forming of these altars of earth, this culture of mound building and the tropics and the crossing of the Atlantic as part of this Tropic of Cancer, connected with the lands of Afar, Africa, the ancient lands of Abraham, sons with Keturah, and some of these regions of the Troglodyte. So when you look at Mu and the cross and the scepter and Shu and the Negus and the Ethiopians and the relation of Ethiopians with the ancient Americans, these ancient Amu, Kushite, Shemitic people, we understand that Ethiopians are the dark face, the Nagas in this region from Ethiopia, which is the mouth or the of Shu. Here, this is where the winds of the atmosphere as the God's light represented illuminated the primordial darkness and marked by a separation between day and night, between the world of the living and the world of the dead. As the God of air, he represented the separation between the earth and the heavens, and the God of the breath of life, the Ruach, and all living creatures, the Eve, the goddess Eve, and the God of wind, and the sailors invoked and provide good wind. You understand, crossing the Atlantic. The under the seas and power their boats through the wind. The clouds were considered to be his bones, and they supported the ladder which the deceased souls could reach the heavens. You understand, the Americas and burying in the Americas, these lands.
Ancient Aztec hymns, they're calling on the name of the Creator. They're calling on the name of the Creator. That's your breath. The Aztec Indians of Mexico, but there is still some more. There were other events recorded by Spaniards that hinted towards the Israelites' extraction of Aztecs, such as an ancient Indian painting which shows how the sands are very fine. They were dealing with the Phoenicians. They were dealing with Tyre. They were dealing with Tarshish, who were the travelers. See, we get into, oh, it was Egyptians, or it was this, or it was that. No, they collectively traveled together. They didn't individually.
Prehistoric California. All you really need to prevent yourself from snakes and other. Let's check on this fire.
They spoke a dialect very synonymous with Hebrew. They celebrate the Sabbath. They wore the Star of David. They had fringes on their clothing. And some of the Lenape who migrated it.
So as early as 400 BC, though some as early as Plato had knowledge that beyond the Pillar of Hercules, there existed a large continent, desert, island continent, some call it island continent, with other islands to the west of it. All right, you understand these other islands were also considered to be part of the New World, which we call the Australoid or Austronesian, the Melanesia, these Negroid type Negrito peoples that have been related to the Pygmies and the other most ancient found people of short stature, like the Negritos. But as early as 400 BC, we see that it's written by Europeans that they had knowledge of this. So 1492, an expulsion of the Moors and Jews from Spain. When we look at Hebrews and Hebrew Israelites, we have to look at the expulsion of the Moors from 1492 and what started the colonization of America. Many that say that we aren't Hebrews have to understand that the colonization of America, how it all began. It began from the expulsion of the Moranos, Jewish Hebrew Moors that were expelled from Spain. So when you look in the scriptures and it talks about this being discontinued from heritage, your nationhood. When we look at Psalms 83, these other nations have conspired with crafty counsel to keep Israel from being a nation. So when you look at the Boule and the Bullion, the Leo, and this time of the Leo, August, coming into July and August, when we look at Hebrews, and it says in Joshua, and they said unto him, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the power of the heaven, which made the sea and the dry land. So when you look at Hebrews and the crossing, Abars, and the crossing over from the Iberian Peninsula, this 0 degrees prime meridian, into these tropics, Cancer, to these ocean treaties. You have to understand that tribes, right? When we look at tribes and the ocean laws and governing the oceans, the treaties, the Moors, and these treaties in regards to ocean travels. You understand why the attack and expulsion of the Moors had to occur before the colonization of individual tribes.
So you see,
So
it was in these slave markets that these Americans brought to the shores
Aboriginal Americans from the
Portugal
American
and Spain,
lands
were
into
then,
Portugal and Spain.
were then titled
So
to
when
be
we look at the slave markets of 1492,
Negroes, Indios,
and how
a lot of these different color caste
Aboriginals
systems.
started to show,
You understand that it wasn't until they were placed in these markets that you see
that Jews,
the distinction placed upon trying to separate
in these lands,
what is what.
Ethiopia and these regions from
So as you see
from the
here,
lines of
there's
Judah,
an actual fact there were many
Menelik,
slaves from the
Solomon,
Americas in
David,
Seville who
these
never appeared
lines
notarized
of kings
registers.
that exist
Says
in those
Franklin
lands.
Sylvia has stated there were about 40 Americans in Seville in 1500s, but there could not have been more. Other evidence for the presence includes the following too. So when you look at the census of San Vicente of 1502, 2 females baptized. So you look at these records, this is how you go to find evidence and proof. Look at when you see these slaves being taken from the Americas, right? Look here, December 9, 1516, 88 slaves presented from the islands of Brazil, formerly pagans but now Christian, 3 Negroes. A Spaniard testified that all these had seen 23 Negroes and taken them to be buried. Thus the Brazilians were called Negroes. In 1216, Una Blanca Fresca, the islands of Brazil brought from Lisbon. So you see here, the Americans were various categorized as whites, Lauros, Negroes, depending upon their perceived color. It is not seen any detailed data from Valencia, Spain between 1570. However, statistical summaries, data of Valencia, Spain between 1569, however, show that new runaway slaves are available during the period new color terms appear, largely replacing laurel representing shades of brown. So understand how this crossing of taking from Brazil and the islands to Portugal. So when you look at the period at this time from 1631 to 1654, it says the Dutch in Brazil married Portuguese-speaking and native women, producing a new type of often blonde hair. Many of these mixed families stayed in Brazil, but others in 1654 fled to the West Indies. That's why I said it should be noted that the Dutch, like the Portuguese, sent civilians from Brazil to Africa in 1644, who were stonemasons, were taken from Brazil to Angola to help build forts, mulattoes, right? In this connection, it is interesting. J.A. Rogers refers to the tradition and ancestry in West Africa. The West African mulatto casts his own. The oldest group are Portuguese Brazilians that live chiefly in large towns in Porto Novo, Contudo, which is in, when you look at Wahida, Judah, and the taking of the Brazilians into the region of Judah into Africa, Angola. So when we look at the curses of the Bible, Deuteronomy 28 chapter or Leviticus 26 chapter, and look at what took place in history.